So I started this series last week, and some of you heard it, some didn't. Now I can't open my thing. Hold on. You know, technology is awesome when it works. There we go. All right. So the name of this series is God Puts You Exactly Where You're Supposed to Be, even when you don't realize it. My first verse is the ESV version, 1 Corinthians 12 and 18. But as it is, God arranged the members in the body, each one of them as he chose. God arranged things so that you are where he chose you to be. So, like I said last week, it says it in the Bible, so it must be true. God places you in positions that you are supposed to be. I started this last week, and as I explained when it began as a unexpected meeting in a Walmart on a Friday evening with two men who asked me if I knew Jesus. And what led to this and that ended up a good Bible study for me and my husband, which that's what a good conversation about God is always ends in something good. So, any of you that have listened to the Sunday school or saw it last week, have you thought about something that previously in your life you thought was horrible and now realize God has put you there because of another reason, that the turnout, maybe if it was 10 years later, became something, even though you were sad that it happened, you now realize? I hope you have. And if you haven't, just dig down into your memories and all those things that have given you pain, and you might just realize that God was there and he wanted that to happen, and then something good became of it. In Proverbs 16 and 9 says, "In their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." Jeremiah 29 and 11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and future." It's all about God. It's not about us. And unfortunately, a lot of us think it's about us. Even though we, quote, are a Christian, we want it to be about us. But it's not. You have to give that away. It's not about you. It's not about what you want. It's about what God has planned for you. And you must accept that, and then you will learn from it. Psalms 40 and 1, I waited patiently for the Lord, and he inclined to me and heard my cry. So that right there tells you, again, it's in the Bible. It's got to be true, and you need to abide by it. Put up the picture of my mom. So, again, last week it was, my mom was a good Christian woman that didn't always follow the right path, but she instilled in me a good Christian life. This is my mom, me, and my four brothers, and two of my brothers are not with us anymore. But both of them knew the Lord before they left. And so we know that they're all together. And as my mom would say, always listen to your mother. And since she was a God-fearing woman, then I believe that what she said was true. So one of the first events when I was a cop that made me know that God put me at that time in that moment, specifically because I was a Christian woman and I could reach out and minister to some people. It was I remember it, May 5th of 2005. I was at the Dart, Illinois train station. I was not there, I was actually on the train. I had worked plainclothes, which is not really undercover because you don't always do it, but for about 2 years, me and a partner had worked in plainclothes, riding the trains, watching things, getting on buses, hanging out at bus stops, pretend like we were, drug addicts, and had a lot of arrests because of that. Because it's amazing what people will do when they know there's cops or somebody watching you, but when they don't think there is, it's really amazing what they'll do. So we were riding the trains, and it was probably 10:30 at night, and at that time there was 47 miles of train service. So we could have been anywhere within this train system. And but we were exactly where God put us. We were coming in on a train. We weren't even going to get off at this station. We were actually about to go about 4 stations up, get in our car, and go home for the evening, because our shift was over at 11. And that's not what happened. So we were flagged down, and by a guy who had known us as uniformed officers, and they saw us on the train, and we didn't have our badges out or anything. We were ready to be done for the night, and they're like, "Oh my God, officers, we need you!" And so we pulled our badges out and was like, "What's going on?" And we were told that somebody was barely conscious in the bathroom. And when I say barely conscious, he was not conscious. He had been beaten in the head by about 4 teenagers who had a gun, who could have shot him and not made him so miserable, but they beat him nearly to death on his head with the bottom end of the gun. And it was just horrible, and you could tell we found where it started from because of the blood trail, and it's almost like he crawled himself to the bathroom, which was 30, 40 feet away from where the event began, and maybe, I don't know what thought he was going to do, cover the blood, but he passed out there in the bathroom, and we found him. So we called for backup, of course, and an ambulance, and this young man's name was Timothy. One of the bus operators that I knew said, "He just got off my bus." He gets on my bus, and he said that he was some type of mentally challenged. He did not know. I never knew this young man. I think he was like 31 at the time, and I did not know him, but a lot of people in that area knew him because they saw him every night. He took the same bus route to that station, walked across the street, it's not really across the street, it's like a block, and got a coffee, came back, got on that bus, and went home every night. For years he had done that, and that was just his habit, and he loved talking to the bus operator. So we got some more information about him from the bus operator. He was taken to the hospital, where he was sent into surgery, and at this time Dart police had full arrest powers, full police powers, but we offered the major crimes to the city we were in. So that worked in 13 cities, so this was Dallas, and we were just beginning to have our own criminal investigation division. And when I say beginning, we had one person was a sergeant, had just been placed in that position. So I contacted him, but still we were not doing the full array of everything, but we did work with Dallas. And in a larger city like Dallas, when a patrol officer gets called to some major event like that, they don't actually work that, they just secure the crime scene. And they wait for homicide or whatever it ends up being to come out and work that crime. Well, after this situation, Dart police actually, through the rest of my career, we worked a scene from beginning to end. Like, I've been to the grand jury, I've testified against a murderer, things like that. So, but this was just the beginning of that for the Dart police. So I spoke more to the people around and the ones who found him, and they said, well, he was walking from 7-Eleven. So we started looking, we found his wallet. He didn't have any money. He had like $2 to buy his coffee, and that was a treat for him to go ride the bus. And so all of his stuff was about 100 yards away that was in his wallet, and they'd gone through it, but he didn't have any credit cards or anything. So this horrendous crime was for nothing. But I knew that I was put there for a reason, and I was determined to help find who did this. We had some other people who said, we saw 4 black juveniles walking from the scene, and they were all males, and we went through the descriptions, and 2 of them we kind of already knew who it might be, and it ended up being those 2 and a couple others that were known criminals in that area. So I asked one of the DPD officers, have you found out anything about the victim? And all he said to me is, no, but I hope he dies. It's like, what? And that's when I found out that they did not work their cases from beginning to end. If the person died, then all he had to write was 1 paragraph, victim died, turned over to homicide. So, there's a lot of people that don't put any type of emotion into their work, especially as a cop, because you can't put too much. You cannot get to where every scene upsets you, because it will bring bad things to your mind. But I was just a little upset about that, and probably said some ungodly things. But Psalms 27, 12 through 14 says, do not deliver me to the will of my adversaries, for false witnesses have risen against me, as such as breathe out violence. I would have lost heart unless I had believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. So it gave me such mixed feelings, and this was one of the first really major thing I had done. But I just knew, I was like, how was I put here, and I really believe God said she can handle it, and my partner could handle it, and he's still not with DART, but he's still an officer, and we went through many other situations. Just I could stand up here for weeks telling you things, but you wouldn't want to hear most of the things. But we worked that case in conjunction with Dallas for 4 years, and they were all tried as adults, because they were adults by then, and probably 2 of them are still in jail. Timothy did die. It was his grandmother that we spoke to, but she thanked us for working so hard to bring an end to this, because these young men were terrorizing other people. There was absolutely no reason that they did this. There was no money gotten. It was just pure meanness. And unfortunately, some people just have that meanness and despite in their heart, and they don't sit and read these verses to deliver me to the will of my adversaries, for false witnesses have risen against me. There's so many people that we can witness to, and sometimes you just talk to somebody, and I hope that if there's just 1% of the people I spoke to when I was an officer that were the bad guy, that ended up changing their lives to believe in God and change what they were doing, then I hope I will be happy with that. I hope it's more. I dealt a lot with homeless, and I know several were brought to the Lord then, but it's kind of hard, to hold those things inside of you and work beside these other people that don't care at all. But I I was proud that 4 years later, we finally got these kids. They were in jail, and they paid for their crimes. So in Psalms 130, 4 through 8, let your ears be attentive to the voice of my supplications. If you, Lord, should mark iniquities, O Lord, who could stand? But there is forgiveness with you, that you may be feared. I wait for the Lord, my soul waits, and in his word I do hope. My soul waits for the Lord more than those who watch for the morning. Yes, more than those who watch for the morning. O Israel, hope in the Lord, for with the Lord there is mercy, and with him is abundant redemption, and he shall redeem Israel from all of his iniquities. So I have a little more time. I didn't know if I'd have to stop there or not. So in the book of Esther, we see how God placed the right woman in the right place at the right time. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. And she saved the Jewish people. Hadassah, better known as Esther, put it all on the line when push came to shove. Esther was an orphan adopted by her cousin Mordecai, and they were among the Jewish captives in Babylon. Psalms 37:5 says, commit your way to the Lord. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. The verses that I found was just deep searching into the Bible about, God putting you in the right place, God this, and being at the right place at the right time. And then I researched them, and it's been a good beginning for me to the series, just to have it over and over and over, encouraging me as well as making me know that I'm in the right spot. That all the time since I was 5 years old walking across the street to the Second Baptist Church by myself, that I was always in the right spot. And I just know that so many people question what's going on at this time in their life and why. And I just want to encourage people to look beyond right now when something's not going your way. All the verses I found, they collectively emphasize the theme of basically divine guidance. And they reassure us that God has a plan and a purpose for each person on this planet. Even the people that we call the bad guys. There's a plan. They may not follow it. They may diverge from it. Or Satan might pull them away. But God wanted them to have a plan. Every person on this planet has a plan from God. We just have to open our hearts to listen. Like I said last week, my mom said, God is always telling you something. You just have to hear it. And whether it's with your heart or your mind or your ears, then you must search. And a lot of that is, a lot of people talk about having their quiet time with God. Sometimes my quiet time with God is not really quiet. It's in the car. That used to be my only time alone when I was working full-time as a cop, was the 40 minutes it took me to get home and to work. And that was my quiet time with God, because I was able to leave what I had seen that day there with God in the car, and not take it home with me, and because the kids didn't want to know about it. I mean, they probably would have, but they didn't need to, and I didn't want to give them any ideas. So, and those of me and my kids' issues, y'all understand. But I encourage you to trust in God's wisdom, and especially God's timing. Remind yourself that even when your plans don't align with God's plans, He's still working for our ultimate good and our greater purpose and His greater purpose. And that was quick again. So, any questions, comments?
I know you're surprised I have a comment,
Yes,
but
Pastor.
Claudia, I want you to share a little bit about, I was always impressed when I heard your stories of ministering to some of the homeless people when you were out there working for God.
Okay.
Talk about that a little bit.
So, Ed we used to do the second Saturday Soap and Salvation, and I went out there a lot, and I was working, so I'd be in uniform, and that's the last thing a homeless person with probably a record wants to see is a police officer in a police car in full uniform coming to hang with them on a Saturday morning when they're basically thinking they're getting some free food and some clothes or, supplies. But there was numerous times, and I think one of the most spiritual moments I had out there, we prayed for them. We had people that were saved, and just over and over, and every Saturday was different. It was a different group of people. But one day there was a guy that I had just trespassed from the train station, his Hatcher Station, and it's like you can see the one block over where we did this, Ed owned that property, or another person owned the property that we did this Saturday thing at, and he was leery when he saw me because I had just trespassed him like a few days before from the location over here. And I told him, I said, this is not DART. This is not, anything. I'm not here as a cop. I'm here as a person who believes in God, that wants to minister to others. And he was just so relieved, and it was just a very good feeling all around. And I think by showing up like that in uniform and showing them that they're people too, that they more understood that God is everywhere as well. And I know that I've had people that I prayed with that, profess their, I used to be a Christian, but I, started doing drugs, and I'm not, and I want to, renew my faith, and which is, it's amazing. But one of the best, most, I can't even explain how good it made me feel is when we were out there and there's homeless people, and I'm talking, these are the homeless people. This is not sweet-smelling, lovely people. This is true homeless people that live in the street, and they laid hands on me as a uniformed officer and prayed for me. It was the week. No, it wasn't the week. It was the Saturday after 7/7/16, the attacks in Dallas on the police officers. So it was 2 days after that. And there just happened to be one of the Soup, Soap, and Salvations. And to have that many people pray with me, and because I got up there and I said, I want y'all to know, I said, the attack on police officers 2 days ago was not right. I said, we all bleed red. There's no difference in, and so I spoke for a little bit. It was very hard, but to have those people who are so against police actually pray for me and lay hands on me was one incredible time. Yeah. And I made it my goal to speak to people. I mean, that's just how I am. If I walk past you, if I know you or not, if I'm walking past you, I'm going to say hello. And I loved to say hello to grumpy old people that you knew I'd arrested, or some of my partner had arrested before, and have them go, oh, hello, how are you today, officer? And I hope that in one of those times, of those millions that I did, that at least a few people changed their mind about the police, that it's okay to, talk to these people. we're different. We come from different, but it's just okay to be friendly with strangers and, and show God's love to everyone. Anything else? Y'all are so quiet. No. Come on, Richard. Yeah. Hello, Richard.
So, I know when you were sharing, I remember in my younger days, I was one of those drug addicts.
Right.
I was somebody who couldn't see good in anything. I mean, when I was young, the only scripture I knew was "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord," and I didn't know what it meant, but I knew He was coming down on me.
Right.
And so, me being a drug addict and always in trouble, of course, I had a lot of dealings with the law. I was in and out of jail constantly, and to this day, I still remember two officers, Officer Sweet and Officer Lawrence, because they always treated me with respect. They took me to jail if I broke the law, but they always treated me with respect. And I'll never forget one morning when I was high on meth and I was sitting out in front of my house and I was messing with the car or something, and Officer Lawrence came by and he stopped and he prayed with me. And it didn't have an impact on me then, but eventually it did, because I still remember it to this day.
That's right.
And it's one of those things that as I started finding out more about God and how much He loved me, and that vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, didn't mean what I thought it meant.
Right.
Now I can look back and see that as, somebody who really cared for me, even though I wasn't the normal person that He would hang out with in His day-to-day life, with His family, or anything like that.
Right.
It's
That's a
it's
great
absolutely
story.
amazing when an officer can reach out to somebody that is hurting, because we never know what kind of impact that's going to have
Exactly.
months, years down the road.
And I hope that at least one of those people that I spoke to or prayed with or laid hands on has that story to tell, and can at some point in their life say, yeah, that made an impact. I'm just going to think it did, so. All right, well, I'm going to let y'all out a little bit early, and that's it. Thank you.
Take a break and come back for worship.